Hi, my name is Michael Zhou, and welcome to this episode of Campus Earth, a podcast about environmental communication, student media, and the way we learn to notice the world around us. This episode is called Stop Preaching, Start Showing. I want to start with a problem that I kept thinking about in this semester. Environmental communication is often important, but it's not always effective. A lot of environmental messages are correct. Climate change matters, pollution matters, food waste matters, sustainability matters, but sometimes the way these topics are communicated feels too distant, too formal, or too much like a lecture. When people feel like they are being told what they should do and care about, they often stop listening. This semester, through IB467, I work on several multimedia environmental communication projects. I made a land acknowledgement project, a microplastic social media campaign, a photography project about my neighbor Kate Martin's garden, a short documentary about ISR food waste, and a 2050 future exhibitions with object about asbestos and space-based solar power. At first, these projects seem separate, but looking back, they all taught me the same lesson. Good environmental communication does not just tell people information. It makes an issue visible. It makes it specific. It gives people something to notice. That is why I would summarize my semester with one phrase: stop preaching, start showing. The first project I want to talk about is my land acknowledgement project. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes Native people as traditional guardians of the land and acknowledge a continuing relationship between the Native people and the traditional territories. At UIUC, land acknowledgement is usually used at events like graduation, convocation, or official meetings. The statement recognized that the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign is located at the land of indigenous nations, including the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Picacho, Uye, Miami, Muscontin, Ottawa, Saku, Meskwaki, Kikapu, Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Chickasaw Nation. Before this project, I understood land acknowledgement mostly as a statement, something people read of the beginning of the events, some respectful but also easy to overlook. But working on the project made me ask, what happens when an important message becomes routine? If people hear the same statement again and again, do they actually think about the land they are standing on? Do they understand the history? Do they feel any connection at the place at all? That was where multimedia became important. For my project, I argued that land acknowledgement could be re-imaged through multimedia communication. Instead of only reading a statement, the university could use interactive map, QR codes, short video, audio recording, and digital storytelling. These tools can help students understand not only the words of acknowledgement, but the history and the communities behind those words. A spoken statement can be respectful, but an interactive map can show people where they are. A QR code can lead them to the stories, sources, and native voice. Audio and video can make an acknowledgement feel like a formality and more like an invitation to learn. This project taught me environmental communication is not only about nature in the simple sense. It is also about land, history, responsibility, and memory. And it showed me that even when a message is meaningful, the media still matters. If the medium make people passive, the message can become background noise. But if the medium invites people to explore, the same message can become more powerful. My second project was about microplastic, specifically through infographic, social media post, and a campaign plan. Microplastics are hard to communicate because they are tiny. They are everywhere, but most of the time people cannot see them directly. That creates a communication problem. If something is invisible, people may know it exists, but they may not feel connected to it. For this project, I had to think about how to explain microplastic to a public audience, especially through social media. That meant the message had to be clear, quick, and visually strong. The project was not just about writing, microplastics are bad. That would be too general. Instead, the goal was to break the topic into questions people might actually stop and read. What are microplastics? How do they enter the environment? How can they affect your body? Why should UIC students care? This is where the social media formats matter. A social media post very little time to get someone's attention. People scroll fast. If the message looks boring or it's too technical, they move on. So the communication has to be direct. You need a hook. You need an image. You need simple wording without losing the seriousness of the issue. For example, an image of microplastic under magnifying glasses does something that a paragraph cannot do as quickly. It makes the invisible problem visible. A short video about microplastic enter the body can make the issue feel immediate. A hashtag like hashtag microplastic or hashtag sustainable living can connect the post to a larger conversation. This project taught me that environmental communication has to be met people where they are. If the audience is on social media, the message has to work in that space. It cannot sound like a research paper copied into Instagram. It has to be visual, short, memorable. But it also has to be responsible. Simplifying does not mean making the issue fake or shallow. It means making the first step easier for the audience. With microplastic, the challenge was not only explaining science, the challenge was making people stop scrolling long enough to care. My third project was about Katie Martin's family garden, which was one of the most personal environmental stories I worked through this semester. This garden exists before Katie was born. That detail changed how I saw it. It was not just a backyard space where vegetables grow. It was a part of her family history. It had moved through generation and generation and become part of the way that her family connected to the land, food, and their daily life. In the garden, Katie grows carrots, peppermints, papaya and squash, and strawberries. But what made this project interesting was not just the list of plants. It was the small choices behind them. The peppermint grow inside a half-buried tire because peppermint spread aggressively through its roots. The tire works as a boundary, keeping the plants from taking over the garden. The strawberries are raised in a bed with soft wood chips underneath to hold the moisture and support the growth. And the carrot had a story. Katie thought they have to fail first, but the carrots are just biennial plants. That would take like a failure at first, but it would actually become a part of the plant cycle life. Katie also avoid pesticides when possible because she believed it is better for the soil. She used a compost tank to turn weeds into natural fertilizer. She collected rainwater in a jar to reduce irrigation water use. None of these choices are dramatic. They're all small, ordinary actions. But this is actually why the project matters. A lot of environmental communication talk about sustainability as a big concept. It can sound like a policy goal, a campaign word, or something printed on a university website. Katie's garden made sustainability feel real. It was not a slogan. It was not a compost. It was the rainwater. It was knowing how peppermint grow. It was accepting that carrots do not always follow your schedule. This project taught me that environmental communication does not always need to begin with crisis. Sometimes it can just begin with care. And this is why storytelling matters. When sustainability is connected to a real person and a real place, it becomes easier to understand. Kitty's garden showed me that environmental communication can be quiet and yet still powerful. My fourth project was my short documentary video about the food waste at ISR. This project brought environmental communication back to campus. Instead of talking about food waste as a huge global issue, I focused on a place that UIUC students actually know, the Illinois Street Resident Hall, which is now ISR. ISR is a normal part of student life. Students eat here, meet friends here, study there, and then leave. Because it's so normal, the waste inside the place can become invisible, that we always neglect. People throw away food every day. It happened quickly. A plate gets scraped. A tray gets returned. A trash can close. Then everybody move on. But when you film that moment, it becomes harder to ignore. That was the point of this documentary. I want to connect local campus habit to a larger environmental issue. Food waste is not just food. It represents water, land, labor, transportation, energy, and money. When food is wasted, all of these resources are wasted with it. But if I only say that as a sentence, it might sound like another environmental fact, importantly, but easy to forget. Video make this harder to forget, and it's much more direct. In the video, I took a shot of students eating at ISR and showed the place. And I also took a shoot of the leftover food shows the problem, an interview with the UFI students, and also a clip of Grind to Energy can shows where the food waste actually leaving dining hall. This documentary was not only about blaming students, it is more about asking where the waste goes and why system exists on campus to deal with it. This is another thing I learned about environmental communication. Good communication should not only point it at the problem, it should also help people understand the system around the problem. Food waste at ISR is local, but it connects to the global food system. It connects to how much food is produced, how much is consumed, and how much was the food is wasted. This documentary format helped me show the connection. It looked like something ordinary and it made it visible. That is what multimedia can do at its best. It can make the audience pause. My fifth project was the 2050 Future Exhibition. For this project, I created two future-oriented objects. One object representing something I hope would disappear or be used less by 2050, which is asbestos. The other representative something I hope it will exist or be used more by 2050. A space-based solar power station or an orbital solar energy farming system. These two objects seem completely different, but together they show two sides of environmental futures. Asbestos represents the dangerous part. It was widely used because it was cheap, durable, and fire-resistant. In a short-term practical sense, it worked. But over time, people learned that asbestos exposed could cause serious lung disease, cancer, and even long-term environmental contamination. To me, asbestos is not only a harmful material, it is also a warning. It shows how society sometimes accepts a trade-off because something is convenient, affordable, and efficient. The problem is that the real cost may not appear until much later. This is why I call it the trade-off hazard. The second project, the space-based solar power station, look forward to the future. The idea is that solar energy could be collected in the orbital, where sunlight is more constant and transmitted back to Earth. In the future where energy demand is high and fossil fuel need to be reduced, orbital solar power represents a possible clean energy solution. For the exhibition, this object was not just about technology, it is about imagination. What kind of energy future do we want? What kind of risk are we willing to accept? What system are we building now that people in 2050 would judge for us? This project taught me that environmental communication is not only about explaining the present, it is also about helping people imagine future. But the future is hard to imagine when it only appears an abstract language. Words like clean energy, innovation, or sustainability can sound impressive but vague. Objects make the future more reachable. A asbestos insulation pad make past harm visible. A model of an orbital solar power station make future possible visible. One object says, "This is what happened when we ignore long-term consequences." And the other says, "This is what might happen if we invest in better system." That is why my exhibition design can be powerful form of environmental communication. It gives people something to stand in front of and to thinking about and can remember. Looking back, all 5 projects taught me something different about multimedia environmental communication. The Land Acknowledgement project taught me that even respectful message can become passive if the medium does not invite deeper engagement. The microplastic campaign taught me that invisible environmental problem needs strong visual communication. Katie's Garden taught me that sustainability becomes meaningful when it's connected to real people, daily habits, and specific place. The ISR food waste documentary taught me that local campus problem can reveal larger system. And the 2050 exhibition taught me that the object can help people imagine environmental futures and more clearly. Together, these projects changed how I understand communication. Before this class, I thought environmental communication was mostly explaining the issue clearly, and now I think it's only part of it. Environmental communication also has to decide what form and the message should take. To conclusion, as the title mentioned this episode, stop preaching, start showing, because it is what semester taught me. Environmental communication should not only repeat that problem exists. Most people already know the pollution, waste, and the climate change are serious. The harder task is making people feel that these issues are connected to places, choices, and systems, and they can recognize. That does not mean facts are unimportant. Facts matter, research matter, data matter, but facts need form. They need image, sound, stories, people, object, and space. Without these multimedia format, environmental communication message can become other message people scroll past, sit through, or just simply forget. With the right format, it can make people stop. It can make them look again. And maybe this is where environmental issue care starting to begin. This episode was written, recorded, and produced by Michael Zhou for IB467 Multimedia Environmental Communication at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. This podcast reflecting 5 projects for my semester: my Land Acknowledgement project, my microplastics social media post, and my Katie Martin Garden photography project, my ISR food waste documentary, and my 2050 future exhibition objects that I wish to exist or to disappear in 2050. Audio was recording with my phone. Additional sound include campus ambience, plastic sound, garden ambience, water sound, dining hall sound, footstep, paper sound, and background music are either from my recording or from the online resources that I found online. Thank you for listening to this Campus Earth. I'm Michael Zhou, and this was Stop Preaching, Start Showing.